Hello, this is Angela with Parco's Permaculture. It is a gorgeous spring evening here in Portland, Oregon. I'm standing in the backyard of my permaculture garden here, and you can see there's quite a bit of mess. We do not have a garage, and I have various supplies stashed back here because we're in the midst of finishing a greenhouse and building cupboards in our partially finished basement. So, just put up with the mess for this video. It is what it is. It's real life. Now, I promised you all that I would be sharing more in 2022 about my kind of thoughts on guilds and companion planting. Guilds are the permaculture way of doing companion planting around a central fruit or nut tree. And that means that a lot of my garden design, the way I think about companion planting, is centered around kind of a main core anchor. And then I build the support plants around it. It doesn't always have to be a tree though. For instance, I have a large Aronia berry here. So we're right out my back door, and I have my woodshed here, and I have the walk down to my golden raspberries here. The bulk of my garden this way. Again, mind all of the wood stacked up. And this faces straight north, and Aronia berries actually will do very well here and fruit under those conditions. It's nice and large, provides a little bit of a screen, and is really, really happy in this location. So I didn't have room for a full tree right up against our pergola, but I did have room for a nice, beautiful shrub that also produces food for me. So let's look at what I have planted around it and kind of what my thought process is. Okay, so here's this Aronia berry in the lovely late afternoon, early evening light. Underneath it, I have a bed that is a hugel bed made with some cherry wood here. And around it, I have put a rhubarb. I love rhubarb as a guild plant. I talk about it a lot. Check out my videos where I talk about that. It will eventually fill in much more of a space here. I have a newly planted Thalictrum, one of my favorite flowering plants, beneficial insectary plants for a partially shaded area. And then this is Fringe Cup, a native all around the edges here. And on the far side, I also have some hardy geraniums, cranesbill geraniums. There is room here where there's not much planted because this is the path that I use to get over to my woodshed. It's also the path that my dogs frequently use in the garden, and that means I don't want to plant too much here. For me, planting the Fringe Cup and the rhubarb and the Thalictrum are all plants that will cap out below the bottom part of my Aronia. So I'm thinking about the visual appeal. Despite all of the construction mess, I'm thinking about the visual appeal and kind of having a cascade of tallest to then rhubarb to the shortest being the Fringe Cup, which I'm hoping will continue to spread. It is a native and it does spread. If you don't have Fringe Cup where you are, it is the native coral bell here in Oregon. So I'm hoping I can get it to fill over here as well, around the edges of this hugel bed. Now next to it, I also consider this part of the guild. This is the vine layer of this guild. Close proximity. This is Shisandra Chinensis, the every flavor berry or 5 flavor berry. I have a hard time getting this to fruit very well, but you can see it's got quite a few flowers on it. It is, I want to say 7 or 8 years old. I was hoping when I initially planted it, it would scramble all the way up here. You can see my aspiration of tying some twine here, hoping it would get up there and fill in here and cover this whole area. I've seen other folks with Shisandra that gets very tall and is really a lovely plant for a north-facing vining location. What I found is that it gets terrible, terrible dieback if it's hot and dry at all. And I found even facing full north, I've really had it struggle here. So not really ideal, but I keep it going and it gets a little bit bigger every year. I'm hoping once it gets a little bit more of a foothold, I say that after 8 years, that eventually it will clamber all the way up. Underneath my vining layer, again, this produces a medicinal edible berry. Have yet to get any decent yield off of it, but maybe in the future. Underneath I have kind of that herbaceous ground layer here. So I have our native sorrel, great native plant. I always try and include natives whenever possible. I am not dogmatic about it, but I include those natives, great pollinator attractors for our native pollinators. Next to it, I have Anemone blanda, which is not native, but I love anemones in the spring. Nothing else gets me engaged with a woodland garden. And again, this is facing full north, like the beautiful display of anemones. and they will also spread and fill in. I think they're just such a great low growing plant to tuck in at the base of those vining plants or those shrubs in a woodland setting, in a shaded setting. They bring so much interest to the garden in spring before other plants are really going. Great investment, and again, slowly will fill in, but not aggressive. So that's sort of a look here. I have my dominant kind of cornerstone Aronia berry here, really quite large. I have my rhubarb as kind of my root layer. Even though I'm not harvesting the roots, it makes a big, huge root, and that will help break up the dense clay soil here. Also provides a harvest of food, as if I didn't have enough rhubarb. I have my native fringe cups all along the edge, and I'm trying to get them to really fill in here as time goes on. I have my Thalictrum, not native, but it will send up a spire of lovely purple flowers that will come up over the top of the rhubarb here and be a source of food later in the summer for my pollinators. And then I have my vining layer here, and I have some more herbaceous flowering plants here, both native and introduced. So thanks for watching today. I hope that this video helped you get a little bit more of a window into my thought process. It's really very organic, and it's very free and loose. And I don't want you to feel hemmed in by any kind of rigidity when it comes to doing your companion planting, doing your guild planting in your garden. There is so much freedom and flexibility. Plant what you like, plant what supports the other plants in your garden, but also what gets you out interacting with your garden. I will be back very soon. I also want to say really quickly, thank you to my 2 new patrons this week. Please check out my Patreon down in the description. That's a great way you can support the work of this channel. Thanks.